Welcome back to the podcast. Today we have David Aguilera with Checkpoint Software Technologies on the show, and we're going to talk a little bit about cybersecurity. Thanks for coming on the show.
Appreciate it, Mario. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, we were talking before we sat down. We've known each other for over 20 years now. And,
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's crazy. And you've been in the cybersecurity space now for about 10, 12 years now?
Just about.
That's awesome, man. Well, tell me a little bit about what intrigued you to get into the cybersecurity space, and kind of what trends are you guys seeing now with businesses and things of that nature with the technology and the software?
Yeah, I've always been interested in cybersecurity, just curiosity to understand, how do people do the day-to-day business? How do they go about protecting themselves? And then just understanding, what the actors or bad actors could be thinking about, right? And so staying curious has always been something that I've been good at. I figured cybersecurity is one of those spaces where you really can never learn enough about. And so that's how I jumped into it. It was a great opportunity. Been definitely growing as a professional, learning more, and then staying connected and networking with other individuals that are also interested. One of the big things that we're seeing right now is, how do companies go about trying to protect themselves, right? And making sure that they're thinking ahead of what the cyber actors or cyber threats may be thinking about doing to customers or to organizations. So one, making sure that there's education piece. So educating your own people internally, your employees, is huge, right? So I would say that's going to be set the tone for what's to come, right? Are they looking at emails a certain way with some sort of, is this a suspicious email? Could it be something that they're trying to phish me or get me to click on something, right? So that's really 80% of the cyber attacks today will start with email. So that's a big vector to go and try to address. I would say something else that's really top of mind today is AI, right? So artificial intelligence, and then how do people go about using that? So not only do we have to leverage that to defend ourselves, but the bad actors are also leveraging that platform to get better at what they do. So those are two things that are really top of mind today. And then I would say the third thing would be more about how do people do more with less? And there's a lot of times with organizations that are, small enough or maybe just around the cusp, but they don't have enough people or that have the know-how or enough manpower to go about protecting themselves from a cybersecurity or cyber threats out there. And so the cyber shortage or skill shortage is always going to be top of mind. So that's and
it's such a big need now, I feel like, because everything for the most part has shifted online. We do so much with our phones and tablets and computers and things of that nature. And you touched on an important piece, and that's educating your team members, because it just takes one, click, and maybe someone's in your system, your cloud software, what have you. And it just, again, it seems like we've transitioned a lot of these online services. And so kind of speak to, you're saying educating the team members. Do you guys go in there and kind of educate their whole team, or is it more of educating the key, maybe IT professionals, and then they take that information and download it to their team? What does that look like?
Yeah, so there's multiple different ways. One, we can go and just focus on, perhaps running a tabletop exercise, right? Which really comes down to what is the process that you have to go through if something bad was to happen, or how do you deal with this situation? So step one, here's who we contact first. Here are the information that we need to keep. And then we can go deeper into, I was mentioning phishing attacks for email, which being really huge. So there's ways that organizations can actually teach their end users. So you send out an email that could be malicious, or in the real world, but it would be a staged email, right? Something that's to train your employees. So how many of your folks actually know, hey, this is potentially malicious, and they actually have to report it, right? And if somebody clicks on it, then they failed. And then you can go back and educate and encourage those people, hey, don't click on that anymore, right? So there's multiple different ways to train individuals. So,
no, that's great, because it sounds like if everyone's kind of on the same page, and they can also take that home too. I know I'm educating my daughter on her phone. She'll get an email or a text like, "Oh, look, my UPS package." I'm like, no.
Yeah.
That's not okay. So that can kind of trickle down into that as well. One of the questions you kind of touched on this was going to be, what are the major threats you're seeing? But it sounds like the biggest threat is through email. Are there others that companies should be aware of that's also a major threat? What are some of the major threats you're seeing in
Yeah, I would say
cyberspace?
social engineering, right? It's huge. You can go online today and find all the details around anybody out there, right? So who is Joe, Smith, and what does he do for your company? Is he in charge of perhaps HR? Does he deal with employee data? And then bad actors can go and specifically target that person to understand, this is what his role, like this is what he does, this is what he's commenting on online, and then very, very specifically target that person to try to get in. And so 2 examples that I'll give you. One is still going to be a phishing, right, email, but they're using now AI and a bunch of different ways to be able to create something that's still specific to this person, that person feels compelled to respond to or click on something that redirects them to another page that was not there, 2 days ago. And so now that person is able to gather his, either credentials or information to be able to, target someone else within the organization. The other one is going to be, whether it's deep fakes, where people are really, creating elaborate situations. There was one case recently where it was actually in a conference over a call, Zoom or Teams, right? And so the person that was having a conversation with multiple different parties on the other side, they said, yeah, those are the individuals, actually got him to send millions of dollars over the wire to somebody else. And so there's, again, many different things that you have to be cautious in every situation. We have to do so many things right as an organization that the bad actors only need to do, the right thing one time to be able to get in. So always be aware and stay protected. So
Yeah. It's always been wild to me, the people who use all this talent for such evil. That's a whole nother soapbox. It just drives me crazy because these people are smart enough to have these elaborate systems creating AI to where they can literally just use this to build a business on the up and up. But yet here we are, just all these phishing techniques and all these things. Just, again, that's another soapbox for another time. But that just kind of drives me crazy that these people can use these talents for such evil. But luckily, there's companies like you in place to help. You refer to them as these bad actors,
right?
To keep them at bay and to keep them at check. Now, I know that the bad actors are using AI. Do you guys incorporate AI into your offensive strategies on protecting companies?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been using it for a long time. Now I think the AI has just been exploding, right? It's just, it's one of those things that just comes up every single conversation, right? But yeah, definitely leverage technology. And one of the examples I would say is ensuring that, do we understand the way that people communicate within organizations? So if I don't ever email Mario, right, but today I'm emailing Mario and asking you about a particular invoice, perhaps it's just, oh, that's an internal email, no big deal. But really, the AI is looking behind that and understanding, has that ever happened before? And if so, should you be aware of that, right? And then how do we go about protecting? So not only understanding emails that are coming in and out, but also internal emails. So that's one way for us to leverage AI. And then obviously there's a bunch of different ways. There's so many different companies today that are leveraging these types of solutions just because you want to be able to automate what you're doing better, but also be able to make your system smarter, right? So
yeah. No, that's great. Kind of touch on what advice do you give the chief information officer? What advice are you giving them to best protect their business from a cyber threat?
So go back to education.
Yeah.
That'd be very bottom of the barrel. Like, we got to make sure everybody's doing this, right? Educating your end users and ensuring that everyone's understanding, how do they need to react to things or look at things, right? So being proactive and creating a culture that actually leads to that, right? do they actually all know the same information? How do you go about making sure that people know how they should prepare themselves if they're seeing something suspicious? How do they report it? The other one would be coming up with some sort of plan. Like if something was to happen, what are the steps that you take in order for you to get back to a good state? And then looking at it from a prevention first perspective. Do you have the right tools in place to ensure that's going to set you up to ensure that you're successful in protecting your environment? Also cost is huge today. So everyone is trying to watch their bottom dollar. I would say that there's a lot of times we get to a state where a company is compromised and money, it's available, right? So try to be proactive and start looking at some of those things out, weigh out your risk versus cost and ensuring that you're keeping your company safe. So those are a couple of things that we will definitely discuss with, C-level executives, understanding their strategy and how do we go about ensuring that we can meet those demands and requirements. So
I love it. So now, when you say the C-suite, are you mainly talking to the CEO? Are you talking to the COO, the Chief Information Officer? Who's kind of your main contact?
Yeah, so it depends on the size of the organization.
Okay.
So there's going to be directors of ITs or perhaps the security operations center manager, or it could be the chief information security officer. So it just all depends on the size of the company. There are times where we are talking to the CIO. Maybe it's a smaller company. They have that title, but the company could be 100 or 200 people, or it could be a 50-man shop, right, or 50 user. And so there's many people that wear many different hats. Mm-hmm. So ensuring that you're speaking the right language and that you're addressing their needs. And there's a lot of times where we have to be able to guide them through that and make sure that we are setting the stage for what their strategy perhaps should be. What are the low-hanging fruits? We do some of those things where we do an assessment and we are able to help people understand where they stand today. Are they ready for potentially something bad happening? How do they go about responding to those things? So there's many different processes. Assessment will be one of those things to make sure that we're addressing their needs. So
that's good. That's really good. Now, I know you mentioned the education piece, the training piece, the strategy piece. With it being Checkpoint Software Technologies, I'm assuming you guys also offer software that they can purchase as well.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about some of the software?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's Checkpoint started 30 plus years ago, right? So firewall business is one of those things where that's the bread and butter, right? But it has evolved over the years, many different solutions, from endpoint security solutions to cloud security solutions, and email security being one of those things, right? So there's been many acquisitions over the years. And I would say the biggest thing is, making sure that customers are finding a platform that they can actually leverage in multiple different ways. So everybody wants to talk about a single pane of glass, but it's extremely difficult to pull that together. I believe Checkpoint has done a really good job over the years to ensuring that customers are getting the most out of their platform. And again, with the idea of making sure that we can not only protect them, lower their risk, but also be able to save them money along the way. So,
outstanding. So, if director of IT is listening to this, or just a company that would fit your sweet spot, and they're like, yeah, we've kind of got some holes in our system here. What would be the next steps for them to get in touch with you to kind of go over the analysis? What does that look like for them?
Yeah, so they can reach out to really any Checkpoint account manager. They can contact me directly as well, and I'll share my contact information, or I can do that now. But one of those things that would be really listening and understanding where they are today, helping them identify where they are today if they need help. We can go through an assessment to be able to do that. And then understanding if there's, some companies that are smaller, a lot of times they don't have enough manpower or cybersecurity to be able to watch their environment 24/7. So we will be able to identify some of those things. And then we can also do an actual architecture review along with an assessment and perhaps show them, hey, here are the gaps, right? We can plug into their email today. Maybe they're using 365 or Gmail. We can go ahead and connect to those systems and then be able to provide, here's what we're seeing. Here's what your current solution is missing. We can do the same thing on the firewall side. And then we can also do where we can become their cybersecurity operations center 24/7 and be able to go through an analysis and approve a value for our customers. So there's multiple different ways. It just all depends on where the customer is and their journey today. So
Excellent, excellent. We'll be sure to include all of your contact information in the show notes. And so it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And like we mentioned at the top of the show, I've known David for 20, 25 years. We go way back, used to work together at a couple of different, companies, and always good to catch up with you and see your growing family. And glad you were able to make it on the show, David. Appreciate you coming on.
no, I appreciate it. It's been great, and look forward to staying in touch and helping any customers that might be in need. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate your time.
You bet. Well, you heard it here. If you do have any needs in the cybersecurity space, please contact David over at Checkpoint Software Technologies, and his company will take great care of you. As always, we would love to help you with any video production needs that you may have. So if you need a professional video for your website, let us know. And thank you for watching the show. And this is Mario Wilson signing off.